Chico and the Man will not be presented this evening, and the Rockford Files will be seen 1 hour later than normal, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. It's the nation's second longest running comic convention. It's Ithacon, April 27th and 28th at the Campus Center of Ithaca College. Tickets are just $20, $5 for kids 17 and under. Order tickets now at ithacon.org. Featured guests include the legendary Walt and Louise Simonson, DC comic vets Shelley and Philip Bond, Dean Haspiel, Mike Gold, the classic Spider-Man and Superman writer Roger Stern, Megaton Man's Dom Simpson, Star Trek's DS9 J.G. Hertzler, and many more. This year we'll have amazing comic publishers like Ahoy Comics, Dynamite, A Wave Blue World, and SHP. There'll be cosplay contests, panels, kids' activities, and more. Plus, Ithacon is offering swag bags for the first 200 attendees to buy tickets. These overstuffed swag bags offer over $30 value in comics, books, and more. It's Ithacon, April 27th and 28th at the Campus Center of Ithaca College. Order tickets now at ithacon.org. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, one of my longtime friends in comics, going way, way back, really almost to the beginnings of Word Balloon itself. A good local guy, Steve Bryant. Welcome back, buddy.
Thanks, man. It's good to be back. Okay, before we start anything, I have a question for you. Do you show the Alex Ross commercial as like an assertion of dominance to put every artist that's going to be on here in our place? Because that's how I saw that. And I'm like, oh, geez, now I got to be on. I should sit up straight.
I understand. And believe me, you're not the first person that's like, great, there's an Alex Ross commercial. I'm an artist and everything. And I understand. I do understand. But thankfully, Alex and Sal Abinanti have been good friends and to myself and the podcast. So I'm happy to help promote the product for Alex. And so, what's amazing, they're working on it, and it's public, I don't mind saying it, they're working on a Kingdom Come documentary about the making of Kingdom Come. And they actually had me sit down, and I'm one of the talking heads in the documentary. So I'm very honored to be part of the production and everything.
That's really cool. So is there like a target release date?
I think they're going to show stuff at San Diego. At the very least, I think they're going to do a sneak of it. I'm not sure. I gotta talk to Sal and see what the deal is. Sal's running the show. So, that's nice. The Comic Multiverse saying hello. Hi, Steve and John.
Hi, Multiverse.
And I guess Janie Smith says I can't wait for issue 3 of what we're going to talk about today, Evie and the Helsings. I've got a couple covers here. Yes, Steve is here because Evie and the Helsings, there's a Kickstarter campaign right now for issue 3, and it's written by Steve. It's drawn by Don Cardenas. There's the entire creative crew, including colors by Jason Millet and letters by Chris Murren. Am I right?
Well, Chris is doing the editing. I'm also doing the lettering. But
excuse me. Okay.
I'm weird. I put editor on the cover because Chris is like, Chris, and he's always such a hard worker. Oh yeah. Okay. My high school friend, Chris Forbes, I saw him pop on with my Got Getty shirt.
Nice.
Sorry, John. I already the span of a small child. So this is just Yeah, exactly. That's me. I've embraced it in my old age.
It's all right, man. It's all good. No, listen, we talked about the first issue when it was coming out. Is this 3 of 4? Is how many issues is it gonna be?
Yeah, 3 of 4. I remember I was supposed to be on the show with you and Don, and we had a pet emergency, and he's doing okay too. But yeah, this has been kind of a fun thing to do. I can't even remember what Don said when you had him on the show, but yeah, like when I reached out to him, I've said this story before. My email led with, "This is either the dumbest thing I've ever pitched you, or it's a brilliant idea." And I still don't know which it is, because I mean, it's just damn goofy, John. But it's been a lot of fun to do. I think I originally, elevator pitched it as Buffy meets This Is Spinal Tap. But I think more accurately, I've refined that. It's Buffy meets Josie and the Pussycats by way of Ash versus Evil Dead. So it's just, yeah, it's been so much fun to do. And Don really does know, he's steeped in, guitars, obviously, if you've ever seen what his studio looks like. So it's been a lot of fun to just have him go nuts with that. And I get to do, the occasional variant cover, which has been a lot of fun for me, because it's a neat way for me to kind of scratch that itch without, God knows I'm incredibly slow at drawing, and I'm only getting slower the older I get. So, a cover is a nice way for me to contribute.
I wonder, Steve, if honestly, as some artists, as they get older, just get more careful about whatever the finished thing is, because I know, talking to Mike Mignola, that's been his problem, where he's like, I just want it perfect. And unfortunately now that means I can't do more than the occasional cover, because I really overthink every page. And you know what's crazy? In reverse, Brian Hitch has found a way to be satisfied and move on to other things. And his speed has picked up dramatically. So I guess it's on the, on the person.
Yeah, like lots of artists get looser and more gestural as they get older. And like I've had this talk with Mark Schultz a few times. And he's, he refers to it as the obsessive German in him. And for me, I think just, I've realized that for the most part, if I'm going to draw comics, it'll probably just be Athena Voltaire, because I can't draw every idea that comes into my squirrel-like brain. So I need to make sure that I'm focusing on one thing and doing it well. But I've been away from that one for a couple of years because, Action Lab, I licensed it to them when I went back to school. So, I'm coming back to my own book for the first time in a couple of years, assuming we get the lawsuit settled with them. And yes, I'm feeling the pressure. It's just that whole thing. So I think that's part of it for me. I just can't get out of my own head.
I understand. I'm gonna share some of the variants that you guys made for the first issue of Evie, and also obviously if you're a fan of like hack slash, this has got that same kind of vibe to it, certainly. But yeah, there we go. So here's a couple of the covers. I particularly love the Marvel inspired one on the far right, but they're all great. Who drew the Marvel one?
Don penciled it, and then I inked, colored, and did all the aping of the Marvel typography. That's how we've been doing the retro variants. So it's kind of fun because I think Don's just a really fluid penciler, and it gives me a chance to, I broke out my Tom Palmer riffs on that one, and I did a miserable Bernie Wrightson style inking job on the second one. And yeah, oh wait, go back. We got the black and white Virgin variant, which is the me paying homage to our pal Tim Bradstreet circa 1993. And that was just a blast to do too.
That's excellent. Here's House of Secrets on the extreme right.
Yeah, that's my clumsy Wrightson inks. Well, Wrightson did like Coquille board on that, which is kind of a tonal pencil, and I tried to do it with a digital dry brush, and I don't think I did it justice. Don did a great job on the pencils, but the inks are hit and miss sometimes.
Well, and then all right. So are these the variants for 3?
The red one is the metal variant. If there's ever a book that cried out for a silver metallic variant, it's this one. And Don penciled that one. Patrick Brower from Challengers Comics inked it, and colored that one. So that one was a fun one. And then on the far right is my variant for issue 3.
Excellent. And there we go. A couple more. These are great, man. And again, the premise. Tell us the premise of Evie and Evie and the Helsings. Pardon me.
Yeah. Okay. So for generations, the Van Helsing family is fought things that go bump in the night, and the last protector's fallen. The mantle falls to their heir. But the problem is she's playing, Evie Van Helsing just wants to rock. She's playing in a hair metal band in Los Angeles. And you remember the first Batman movie where the Tim Burton one, where at times it felt like the late 80s and at times it felt like this kind of bizarre Art Deco 1930s world. Picture that, but instead of 1930s Art Deco, it's 1980s, MTV era mixed with modern stuff. So
sure.
It's kind of our own weird little amalgam of those two eras, but it's a fun playground.
That's great. Tell me about the other band members.
Oh boy. Okay. You're just hitting me with all the difficult things. I'm going to forget the last names. I think
it's okay.
The drummer's named Dino. He has been playing with Evie since high school. And actually in issue 2, not to be too spoilery, he starts to witness some of the weird stuff going down. And we follow that thread in issue 3. Lead guitar player is Ricky Roth, spelled with 2 Ks and an I, Ricky. And he's your rich kid prima donna, flashy soloist who thinks that everybody in the band is not good enough for his level of genius. And then the bass player is Jack, and I'm forgetting Jack's last name, who's a trans man and is Evie's longest friend. And so Jack is also going to be kind of learning about Evie's family history. And like in issue 3, we finally go back to the family house, and there's kind of a reveal for what it is. And it's one of those things of, oh, no wonder. Now I see why the band never practiced here in high school. So, just some fun little riffs there. But yeah, there's a whole parallel, because in addition to Evie taking on vampires and all of that stuff in the LA nightlife, there's the other part of the LA nightlife where the band is going into a battle of the bands, and those two worlds are going to eventually converge. Because, if there's one thing that Elmore Leonard taught us, the best thing in storytelling is when everybody ends up heading in the same direction and crap hits the fan. Sure.
Absolutely, man. No, that's great. Again, you and I are veterans of the 80s MTV period, so we certainly know it as kids that experienced it firsthand. Did you do a lot of research for the LA club scene of the 80s?
Actually, Chris Murrin, who's editing this, he and I were originally going to write it together, but he ended up kind of stepping away because we weren't sure of the tone we wanted to have. And, it's perfectly amicable. He's editing everything I do and, probably always will as long as he wants to. But Chris is steeped in LA hair metal history.
That's great.
So yeah, we've got him. We've got Don, who is steeped in current metal and all this other stuff. And then, we've got the old man writing it saying, I wonder if this fits, stuff like that.
Are you, and I'm sure I asked you this regarding the first issue, is there a metal playlist? Have you put together anything on Spotify or anything as kind of a companion to the book?
That would be a good idea. I think it would probably be a Don and Chris thing, because I just put together a Rush playlist and that doesn't really fit. Don't tell anyone. I'm okay. It's not quite as bad as the first year that the Grammys had a heavy metal award and Jethro Tull won it, but I'm not steeped like those guys are.
Hey man, I honestly, and especially like the hair bands, not so much the metal bands, both actually. When Triumph videos would pop up on MTV or whatever, it's like, all right, whatever, that's fine. I certainly appreciate it now and from afar, but I can't say I was a big metal guy. I was a new wave guy, man. I had the skinny tie on. I had, stuff like that. IRS records, things like that.
I was the weird hybrid of new wave stuff and progressive rock. I still don't know how. I can't reconcile how that worked, but I blame Peter Gabriel and the Buggles for kind of pulling me into both of those worlds.
Well, again, being a guy that grew up near Chicago and stuff, when I got to work in the 90s at XRT, oh my God, it was like, Nirvana. And I don't mean the band. I mean real Nirvana. It was exciting. And yeah, man, actually we were there for the beginnings of grunge. I think I might have told you this before a couple of years ago when Green Day, Weezer, and Fall Out Boy were at Wrigley Field. And I went to the show with a friend, and Mike Norton was giving me grief. He's like, "You're too old to be at that show." And I'm like, I don't know how to break it to you, but I was in the music business when Weezer and Green Day broke through. So no, I have to say, I was in my 30s, but it was like kind of an extended decade of my 20s actually working in the business. So I'm like, sorry, man, guess what? No, I was involved in a very small way when these bands were happening. So yeah, I do, man. I love this stuff. I was before we got started, I was talking to a good friend, and he brought up Tim Bradstreet. Bradstreet came in conversation. It was funny because we were talking about Central Illinois, where you are, and where I went to school, and where Tim went to school and grew up. Bradstreet grew up in that area. I didn't know. Do you remember the comic book store in Central Illinois in the 80s, Dreamth?
Oh, yeah. Was that Lloyd or Lowell? I can't remember the name.
It was Lloyd. It was Lloyd. You know who was down there as a kid, like a decade or so younger than us, bebopping around? Matt Fraction.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Honestly, seriously, man, I just had him on to talk about the Monarch Godzilla show on Apple because he co-created it. And I knew he grew up as a little kid in Chicago. And then he said, yeah, my dad moved down to Central Illinois, near Illinois State. And, he was telling me, and he goes, there was like this really weird comic book store in Normal, Illinois. And of course, because everyone has to understand, there's a TH at the end of dream. Dreamth. Yeah. And of course, that's not a word. And it confused us all, I think, when we first encountered it. And we had to ask Lloyd, the sole owner and worker at the store with his giant Stetson hat. And it's Dreamth? Yeah, Dreamth. I'm like, is that a word? He's like, well, it is around here. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever.
It's Daffy Duck just saying the plural of dream.
Yeah, instead of, because like, shouldn't it be dreamt? Shouldn't it be dreamt? Dreamt. Dreamt. So literally, we blew each other's minds because, again, Matt grew up in Chicago, so he heard me doing my sports radio stuff.
Yeah.
And that was cool that he knew that. But now another connection, and truly, like, we've texted each other numerous times since, where all we'll say to each other is "Dreamth," and it's like, or I congratulate him because I guess Monarch got a second season.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, congratulations, pleasant dreamth. And he laughed. So yeah.
Lloyd.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. But okay, I have a Chicago boy. We're going off book, so I hope we don't drive everyone away. I have a Chicago radio question for you. Actually, Chicago concert question for you.
Ooh, exciting.
Were you at the show when the Replacements broke up on stage?
I was not.
Okay.
I was aware of it, but I was not. Were you there?
No, gosh, no.
What was your first here? And again, this kind of ties into the book a bit and everything. What was your first concert?
Cheap Trick at the Pekin Arena, like 78, 79, something.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So I've just dated myself now. So yeah, I
have a feeling there's a lot of comic book fans that have dated themselves over the years. I wouldn't sweat it. I wouldn't sweat it. Mine was, and it was, my stepbrother worked at Baker and Taylor, was this great wholesale company that would feed the record stores. They were the middleman between labels and retail stores, and they would sell audio and video and stuff. But this was 1978, so it's really pre-VCR era and stuff. Yeah, and he had tickets, mentioning Jethro Tull. He had tickets to Tull at the Chicago Stadium in '78, the Stormwatch tour.
Oh, that would be a good one.
And I got to be honest, I was not a big Jethro Tull fan. His date fell through, and he didn't want to eat the ticket. And he's like, "Please, man, please come with me." And he's like 17 or 18. I'm like 12, whatever it was, 70, or 13, I guess. And yeah, I'm like, all right, fine. And we went, and it was fine. But it was great because Tom Marker from WXRT was the MC. Cut to early 90s when I started working there. And I'm like, you remember a show you MC'd at the stadium for Jethro Tull? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I'm like, I was there. I was a 13-year-old kid there, man. So no, it's interesting. Feel free, people in the chat, to chime in with your first shows. I always love that. I always love learning whose first shows. But you did good with Cheap Trick. I know that year too. I saw Styx, and April Wine opened for Styx, and it was the Cornerstone.
Oh, wow.
That was cool.
Canada's own.
Yes. And I know in 80 or 81, when Earth, Wind, and Fire came out with the Rise album that had Let's Groove Tonight. I saw them at the Rosemont. And listen, I love that they're still out there. I love that they tour with Chicago. But sadly, the leader of Earth, Wind, and Fire has long passed, Maurice White. And he was the lead singer and the main writer. And I love Philip Bailey, and Philip does a great job singing the Maurice songs. But I'm really glad I saw Earth, Wind, and Fire with Maurice White. And, they're a Chicago band. And I think they get left off the list sometimes when we talk about the classic Chicago bands. And Cheap Trick comes up because of Rockford, and Styx certainly, and REO Speedwagon. But it's like, let's not forget the great Earth, Wind, and Fire, because they were amazing.
Well, and if we can skew 90s for a second, you also had Material Issue, which tragically ended not great, and Urge Overkill. Liz Phair. I mean, right, that's three awesome bands out of Chicago from the 90s.
Liz Phair was 2 years younger than me in my high school, and I knew her brother Phil. And Liz hung out with the theater kids, and I was a theater kid. So when I was a senior, she was a little sophomore and stuff. And whatever, I was dating a senior, but certainly we took notice of young Liz. And man, when Exile in Guyville came out, we were all just like, "Wow, that is fantastic! Hey, look what Phil's sister did." It's like, that's fantastic, man. So yeah, she's amazing. I love Liz. She's terrific.
That would be so wild. I keep forgetting that. Well, I say this every year at C2E2. You're the mayor. You know everyone, and it's just really cool.
Well, having done this 19 years, podcast is going to turn 19 May 10th, and you were one of the early guys, man.
I remember the first episode I heard, you had Doug Klaba on, and I think I even emailed you and asked if you were Shaky Suntress from WSCR, the Score Sports Radio, and you haven't been able to get rid of me since.
Well, it's honestly because that was 2005, and I really, after leaving the Score and WXRT, I was more behind the scenes. So every now and then someone would recognize me from one of my future radio jobs. But it is funny when I do run into people, and actually, I know at Wizard Chicago, which now is Fan Expo Chicago, that area across the street from the convention center where they have all the restaurants and everything. Franco and I were eating outside, and we were in mid conversation, and a cop walked over and said, "I'm sorry, are you Shaky from the Score?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am actually." And so Franco saw it firsthand, and he's like, "Wow, people do know you around here." I'm like, that's what kind of happens, man. We all love our local media people here in Chicago, and we treat them like rock stars. And listen, man. As I always say, I'm a foot soldier when it comes to radio. I am not Jonathan Brandmeier. I'm not Steve Dahl. I'm not any of those guys. I was just lucky to do the thing that I did and have fun with it and stuff. So,
well, I mean, yeah, that, and ultimately that's what's important with all of this stuff. I think the older I get, it's I don't view it as much as moving goalposts, but just really appreciating where you are. And I think when we're all younger, it's really easy to kind of project, oh, it'd be good to have this or this or this or this. But it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. You don't know what comes with this or this. And sometimes what you end up with is so much better than what you thought. I think I've just kind of gone full Nigel Tufnell from Spinal Tap, just explaining something. So
have a good time doing. Yeah, the drummer, one of the drummers, that's what he says in Spinal Tap. Have a good time while doing it. That's
yeah,
or whatever. Morty, he says that to Rob Reiner. But no, you're right, man. I equate, and maybe you do too, what I do with the podcast and what a lot of my friends that are doing creator-owned books. It's like we're good bar bands. And it's okay. We're not playing the United Center. We're not playing one of the giant venues, but we have a nice audience that figures out, oh, so-and-so is going to be at Shuba's. Great. I'm going to go see him and stuff. And that's great. And I feel that way about the podcast. I mean, it's like, okay, I don't have the Adam Carolla numbers. I don't have the numbers that the SNL guys have, the fly on the wall. That's all right. We always love when the pets intervene. That's all right. That's real. But yeah, so no, I feel lucky. And again, it's like, by all means, pursue your dreams, but make stuff. And you might find that you'll get great satisfaction having made something and perhaps as much as, hey, guess what? Steve Bryant, you're the new Batman artist. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's so weird. For the longest time, I thought that being a freelancer, being a full-time freelancer, earning your money solely from freelancing was like the sign of having arrived. And it certainly is for some people, but for me, when I did it, I did everything exactly wrong. I took every low-paying job I could, thinking I would be ingratiating myself to people. I took the crappy deadlines. I took all of that stuff, thinking, they're going to remember me. We're going to be pals. They're going to give me work. And really all it did was tell them, hey, if you've got something where the budget's really low, you can call this guy. Or, hey, if the deadline sucks, this guy will bust his hump to try to do something mediocre for you. But yeah, I ended up with a bunch of work that looked really mediocre. And that's where I kind of shifted and just decided to focus on creator-owned stuff. And the other thing was just realizing, I did my first Kickstarter in 2010 and it did great. So what did I do? I immediately abandoned the platform to seek validation in the direct market. But I came back to it like 8 years later or 6 years later or something like that. And yeah, I've had more financial success and more creative success, just crowdfunding stuff, because I'm able to do what the kind of book I want to do. And I'm also able to choose. I'm a book nerd. Before I did any of this, I worked at role-playing game companies, and I was an art director, and I like being able to choose better paper stock than a company that has to be concerned about their margins, and choose heavier, cover stock, and just all of that, because, a publisher has to behave responsibly. They've got to be able to pay their salaries, and, I hope they take care of their employees with good health care and retirement benefits. But if you're crowdfunding this stuff, you got to be responsible to your partners. But the nice thing is, your book is paid for, so you can choose to do something that's more lavish than a publisher would give a no-name like me free reign on. And it's a sweet deal. And again, these are the kind of things that weren't available to creators, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Sorry, I kind of just took off on a tangent.
Wrong. Actually, you're going in a direction I intended to cover, and that has been your experience with Kickstarter. Have you exclusively done Kickstarter? Have you tried GoFundMe or some of the other crowdfunding platforms?
I haven't. I'm on a Kickstarter group with a few other people that work on the platform, that fund their comics on the platform, and there's been a lot of talk about that. And some of it is just having that relationship and people knowing where to look for your work at. And there have been friends of mine that have started on one platform for issue 1 of their book and jumped to another platform for the second. And as a reader, I have trouble tracking all of those locations down. I've seen some people do some of these other sites as like a secondary thing. Your book gets funded on Kickstarter. You can put it on one of these other sites as like a last chance kind of thing or something like that. And I've thought about doing that, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it, because running a campaign, for all the cool things about making the book, running a campaign is tiring, and so is fulfillment. And I want to keep doing these books this way, but I think going forward, I want to do bigger books. I want to do OGNs instead of floppies. So that's kind of where my brain's going right now. So I think Kickstarter's been really good to me. And for me, I just feel like having a place that people can look for me at is probably the safest bet.
No, I understand. And again, here's the campaign. You've got 3 weeks to go. You've made your initial goal, but obviously, I'm sure you have stretch goals.
Yeah, we're $40 away. Here, scroll down. We're $40 away from an Andrew Peepoy guest artist variant. And if you know Andrew, you probably have a good idea of what it's still further down, of what I had him draw.
Is it this Archie kind of look?
Yeah. There's a bigger shot of it further down. And it also features the best dialogue I've ever written.
Attaboy.
Well, it's just a dad joke, and I got a chance to write Archie-style dialogue, so I felt like it was a win.
That's fantastic.
There it is. Andrew kicked so much butt on that, and it's so non-heavy metal that it was just a joy to do. So yeah, if we get another $40, all the print backers, our physical backers, are going to get a 6x9 mini print of that, and the digital backers will get like a digital shot of it.
That's terrific. That's great, man. No, Andrew's a great Good Girl artist, and has done tons of Betty and Veronica variants and the regular covers as well. Perfect kind of thing for him to do, and I love it. I think that's great. That's excellent. Yeah, man. No, I think it's a great concept, and you're writing the hell out of it, and you have a lot of good experience writing great, strong women heroines like Athena Voltaire. But yeah, I can appreciate the gimmick and the novelty of this book and why it's fun. I think it's great, and I don't blame you for sticking with Kickstarter, because clearly they're more about community than the other GoFundMe and other platforms, and I think that's important. Have you Are you able to tell that you've gotten support from your friends in this Kickstarter group as far as them backing, your projects as well?
Oh yeah, it's
Community?
we back others projects, but also it's people that have so much more experience with crowdfunding than I do, and are far more steeped in it. And I don't think it's a secret group, but I don't know if I should mention who's in it or any of that stuff. But yeah, it's a bunch of people that are way smarter than me, so it's a great chance for me to learn, from them. And yeah, it's again, all of these things. I'm teaching a couple classes at ISU, and just one of the big things that I tell students is finding that group of like-minded people. In the early 2000s, there were all these creative articles written about finding your tribe. In Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist, he quotes Brian Eno talking about dispelling the lone genius myth and talking about creating a scenius, a scene of like-minded individuals. And you see that in comics all the time with all these people coming up at the same time. And so, yeah, I love the sense of community you get either with Kickstarter people or, all my drawing nerds that I look up to and stuff like that.
I think of, three guys that became really good friends at, I want to say Western Michigan, and that's Brad Meltzer, Jeff Johnson, Judd Winnick.
Wow.
And all of them were, these were the guys who were the losers on Saturday night, just hanging out with each other and talking comics and stuff. And I understand it. As we were saying, I didn't know, I never thought that just knowing Tim Bradstreet as one of the guys at the comic book store where his career would wind up. And certainly I know he felt the same way about me being a radio nerd.
Yeah.
And then 15 years later, we see each other at a Wizard Chicago show, and literally we're just both like, wow, who knew? We both, I mean, and listen, and it's certainly Tim much more so in comics, but my thing in radio, it's like, hey, we made it. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, man. We actually are doing what we want to do, man. So that's great. And also, again, yeah, I think what you said is true. You do. You need to find like-minded people. I wanted to ask you about ISU because I know they had a comic convention. Was it last year, or because I know actually I think it was last year, and it was around this time because Fabio Moon even came in town and went down to ISU and was part of the convention. Am I right?
I'm not sure. They've had this monthly thing called ReggieCon. Reggie Redbird being the mascot of Illinois State.
Right.
And I know they've done virtual conventions, but they've also had guests come, and it's very DEI focused, which is really cool because they'll have a lot of different creators coming on talking about things. So I didn't know that Fabio Moon came, but it wouldn't surprise me. Now, the one thing that disappoints me, they're doing an in-person convention this weekend.
Oh, that's a shame. Yeah.
And they reached out to me, and I was like, well, there's this show in Chicago called C2E2. In fact, one of the organizers from ReggieCon, I was like, I met you at C2E2 3 years ago. It's like, no.
Oh, man, that sucks. Well, and also, hey, man, that's when you need to slap the students around and go, listen, don't have an event the same weekend as the Chicago event because it's only 2.5 hours away and people are going to go to the big event. I mean, listen, and again, I love, because I had heard about ReggieCon and everything. I didn't know it was a monthly event, but also I know, too, it wasn't part of ReggieCon, but I know Dave Walker was down there at the Normal Theater doing a Q&A with a black filmmaker, a documentarian, I want to say.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's they're starting to put some of this stuff together, and the professor that organizes it is a psychology professor, Scott Jordan.
Cool.
And he has he's one of the professors that has like the psychology of Batman kind of classes for honors students.
Sure.
I probably butchered half of his curriculum, so don't tell him. But the program that I teach in, Creative Technologies, we've got like a game design sequence, and there's an audio sequence and all these other things. But previously, we've done a game showcase because the students will create electronic games, but also tabletop games. So they're folding the game showcase into ReggieCon. So a bunch of our students are participating. And then students from my sequential art class and character design class and digital painting class, not this year, but next year, we've talked about trying to set up an artist alley. So I think it's going to be kind of cool. I just want to make sure it doesn't fall on C2E2 weekend or Windy City Pulp.
Absolutely.
Back to that too.
Sure. No, absolutely. Is what was I going to ask you regarding is the game design company that was there when we were students, and I'm assuming might have been the one that you worked at. It was in downtown Normal, just a couple doors from the Normal Theater and everything. Is that still there? Is that company still there?
No, they closed up shop. Sorry, I'm getting an echo. Is that coming through on your end?
No.
Okay, cool. They closed up shop in, it had to be the late 90s, early 2000s. That would be Game Designers Workshop, GDW.
Yep.
Publishers of Traveler was the big one that they had. And yeah, I worked there from 89 to 92, not early 93. And then I went up to FASA in Chicago. The people that did Shadowrun and Battletech. And yeah, so many of these companies end up either going out of business or getting absorbed by larger companies as all of this, content, I hate that word with a passion, but all of this stuff gets, everyone wants to do their own MCU. So they buy small companies to try to own as many IP as they can.
Yep.
And try to put it all together. And yeah, everybody wants to be a big shot. Nobody wants to just do the work and produce stuff anymore. Sorry, that sounds really old man and grumpy. But these publishers were great. But yeah, I know the rights keep getting sold off to, I don't know, venture capital.
The next big fish that swallows the little fish.
Right.
No, I get it, man. I absolutely get it. And you're right about that. Is there a part of you that would still want to make tabletop games or other games?
God, there's always a part of me that wants to do so many things. Like I loved doing spot illustrations when I was there. It was a lot of fun. I still love art directing, creating genre style logos for books. I'm getting a lot of that out of me, doing trade paperbacks of my comics and stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a part of me that just really loves the appeal of putting this stuff together. But I also know I just don't have the time. I always have to remind myself, how long does it take you to do a page, dummy? Okay, sit down and shut up. That's just the reality of it.
No, I get it, man. Do you go to Gen Con? Do you ever do the gaming conventions?
I have not been to. I was at Gen Con like the first year that it was in Indianapolis. I never went to it in Lake Geneva, but I went to it in Milwaukee a ton because that's when I was working in that industry. I still want to go to Milwaukee just to see if the Safe House bar is still around because that place was awesome.
Probably is. I think it is. Is that the one with the secret passage?
Yes. Yeah.
Pretty sure it is.
I went to Gen Con once in Indianapolis, and it was kind of fun. My daughter got big into gaming, and so I keep, she and I keep talking. She's 23 now. But
wow.
we keep walking. I know, time flies. But we keep talking about making the trip up there, but we haven't yet, but I really should.
No, I understand, man. That's cool. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap up. Do you want to tease any projects you've got coming up?
Yeah, it's more, well, I'm going to be kickstarting a couple of things. So I know Kickstarter allows people to follow creators. So, if you've liked my nonsense, the times I've been on the show, follow me on Kickstarter. You can find it through the Evie and the Helsings page. I don't know which one we're going to do first, but Jason Millay, Chicago guy and my longtime collaborator, and I and illustrator Patrick McAvoy, and I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, have something coming called Undead or Alive. It's a big old love story to 1970s monster comics. The first arc is a swamp story that takes place in Gerber's Crossing, Louisiana, intentionally, riffing on the Steve Gerber stuff. So, yeah, we're going to be doing that. I think that'll be sometime in the summer. And then also with artist Rob Jones. I don't know if you've met Rob. He used to come to some of the Chicago shows. He was Dick Giordano's last assistant.
Wow.
Before Dick passed. But yeah, Rob and I, again, along with Jason and Chris, it's like a band almost, is I have to have the same colors and the same editing. But Rob and Jason and Chris and I have one coming out probably in the summer also, original graphic novel called Shaken and Stirred. It's essentially Revenge of the Bond Girls. The world's greatest spy has gone rogue, and now a bunch of his former entanglements are the only ones that can bring him in. So it's to use movie parlance, it's James Bond meets 9 to 5. So
that's a great idea, man.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, both of those are coming later this year on Kickstarter.
That's great. And of course, you've had your experience, one of your licensed books back in the day. I want to say it was for Boom. You did Steve and Mrs. Peel. You did.
Yeah, I got to do the 0 issue of that. And again, that was one of those short deadline jobs. And that one haunts me because Mark Waid wrote it and I did not deliver what I wanted to do because the deadline was short. So, maybe I'll get another shot at something like that because I love a period book.
And you do it well, dude. Absolutely. I mean, Athena Voltaire, still initially, that was what grabbed my attention when it came to your work, and I'm glad that's continuing.
Thank you. Yeah, and on that front, I'm part of a class action lawsuit with 40 other creative teams against Action Lab. And as soon as we get that solved, I will be putting out more Athena Voltaire too.
That's great to hear, man. Absolutely. But right now the concern is you can get issues 1 through 3 of Evie and the Van Helsings. The Kickstarter campaign still has 3 weeks to go. Yes, and absolutely. And no, it looks great. Again, a great creative team of Chris Murrin, Jason Millay, Don Cardenas, and our buddy Steve Bryant. So well done, and congratulations. I think it's great. Continued success. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this weekend at C2E2. What's your table for people to look for you?
I got my best table ever. I'm going to be in Artist Alley, M10. I'm going to be right on the aisle, smack in the center. I don't know how I managed that, but yeah, big thank you to Alex Ray from C2E2 for that.
That's great to hear. That's wonderful. Well, I'll see you.
Yes.
Look forward to hanging out and seeing the guys, whoever's there showing up. I would imagine Don's going to be sitting with you. I don't know if Jason will sit with you.
Don's further down the M row. I think he's like M20. So we have 10 booths to separate our awesomeness. I've got a couple of my students who are going to be helping out. So that's going to
great.
Give them a chance to see this and scare them away from this future of misery. No, I'm kidding.
That's all right. Hey man, you're the kind of teacher they need who has seen the bright sides and the tough sides of the business, and you're going to shoot straight with them, and that's what they need to hear. They can't just hear. They got their moms to tell them that they're great. They need an honest broker that it's like, okay, if you want to do this, I mean, good Lord, I deal with it in radio and even podcasting all the time. So I hear you, buddy. Believe me. But great to see you. Hang out because I want to talk to you up here for a second. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you'll stick around because in about, I got to do the math, about an hour from now, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 8 Central, 6 Pacific, I'll be talking to Sanford Green. Sanford is just weeks away of his Dr. Doom one-shot that he did with John Hickman coming out. Yeah, he showed it to me. It's fantastic, but it's a great chance, much like catching up with Steve, to catch up with my buddy Sanford. So I'm looking forward to talking to Sanford. I hope you'll join us for that on the Word Balloon channel here on YouTube in about an hour. So until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.